Are you using these new age Excel functions or still struggling with the old ones? Well, my friend, I have 7 new age Excel functions for you that will help you to deal with data like a pro. So without wasting any time, let's get started. Now, if you look at into my worksheet, I have this data here into one single column. And in this data, I have name and then I have score. And then again, I have name and then score. And I have total, if I count total 20 entries. Now, the problem with this data is I need to have names in a separate column and score in a separate column. Now, there are a lot of complex formulas that you can use to split this data or restructure this data into different columns. But today, I'm going to use a simple function that is a new function, and this function called wrap rows. So when I enter wrap rows, it allows me to select the range or array, or the argument name is vector. And when I select this, in the second argument, it allows me to enter a count, which is a wrap count. And when I say 2, now why I'm entering 2 here? Because I need 2 values, first and second, in a single row, and then third and fourth in the next row. So it will enter first value, second value, and then it will move to a new row and then enter third and fourth value. So let me hit enter and show you how this function actually works. As you can see here, I have names in the first column and scores in the second column. Now, how this function actually works. So when I say I need 2 as a wrap count, that means it will enter first value and then second value. And after the second value, it will move to a new row. But if I enter 3 here, let's say 3, it will start entering 3 values in the first row and then again 3 values in the second row. It will continue using the same count. But as I need to split each row with 2 values, my wrap count here is 2. And this is the exact way I want to restructure my data. Now, I have one more data here, which is exactly same the data I have in the column A. But in this data, I have product name here. And then I have these quantities, and then I have ratings of the product. Now I want to split this data into 3 different columns. I want first 5 in one column, next 5 in one column, and then next 5 in the third column. So instead of using wrap rows, I will use wrap column. So which is a different function, but it works on columns instead of rows. So what I'll do, I'll enter wrap columns. Again, I'm going to select my range. And then in the wrap count, because this time I want 5 values, first 5 values, and then second 5 values, and then third 5 values. And I'm going to enter 5 and close this function. And here is my data, which is now restructured. So how this function actually works, it wraps, it goes with first 5 values and then wrap this column and start from the second column, again enter 5 next 5 values and then wrap and go to the next column and then enter next 5 values. But if I change, let's say if I enter 6, so you can see here the structure of this data is different. But for me, 5 is a perfect wrap count, and here is my data structured in a right way. All right, so here I have this data where I have date, product, quantity, and amount. Now I want to build a mechanism where I can extract data just by specifying the month name. Now this data is basically for the entire year of 2024. And here I want to have a data table or something like that help me to extract month-wise data. So for this, I'm going to use the function called filter. And in the filter function, in the first argument, that is array, I'm going to select this entire data that is in the range A2 to D1001. Now in the include argument, I'm going to specify, instead of specifying anything, I'm going to enter a function that is called text function. And in the text function, I am going to select this entire column of where I have dates. And in this function, I'm going to specify this. And in this function, I'm going to specify the format of the month name that I want. And I'm specifying a condition to extract month name from dates using 3M format. So it's a short format of month name, and test it against the cell F5. And if data is not there, if data is not there for any particular month, it should return this particular message, no data found. Now, the moment I hit enter, you can see I have this data. Let me change the all right. So now when I change the month name from here, let's say if I go to April, I get data only for the April month. Now let me show you how this formula actually works. So when I'm specifying this entire data here in the filter function, and then I'm specifying the text function, which actually only takes month from date column instead of the entire date, and then match it with the month name that I have in the cell F5. And as you can see, when I change it, it also changed the data I'm extracting from the main table. All right, so here I have this data where I have name and score in two columns, and in the third column, I want to have remarks based on the score. Now for this, I'm going to write a nested conditional formula, but I'm not going to use any if function. What I will use is the new function switch. So let me expand this formula bar a little bit, and let me write this formula directly into the formula bar. So when I enter switch, in the first argument, I need to specify the expression. So I will enter this function called true. I will tell you why I'm using true here, but let me continue with the formula. So now here I will specify my first condition, that is if in the cell B2 value is greater than or equal to 90, I want, so this is my condition, this is my first condition in the value argument. And in the result argument, if this condition is true, in the result argument, I want the value excellent. Now, let me again hit Alt plus Enter to move to the next row. Again, let me copy it from here to save some time. Equal to or greater than 70, then I want the remark as good. We copy it again. Oops, I need to press Alt and Enter. Yeah. So if 60, then average, and if 50, then pass. Otherwise, if none of these conditions are met, I want to have the remark as fail. Let me close the function. Let me expand it a little bit more. Now let me come back to my first argument and tell you why I'm using this true function here. The reason is I want to test all of these conditions as true. If this condition is true, then this result. If this condition is true, then this result. And if this condition is true, then this result, and so on and so forth. So that is why I'm testing these conditions as true, not false. If I'm testing these conditions as false, then I need to use false function here. So now let me hit enter and see what I'm going to get in the result. So for 88, I have the remark good. Let me move this formula. Let me drag this formula up to the last cell. Now you can see here for 92, I have excellent. For 90, again, because it's equal to 90, I have excellent. For 91 and good. But if I enter new value, let me enter 45, Let me drag this formula down. And you can see here I have the value fail because anything below 50 will be considered as fail. So this is how this function works. And it's an amazing function to write nested conditional formula. So I have this data here, which is a small data. And from these values where I have status of orders, I want to extract only order numbers. Now for this, I am going to use a new function in Excel that is called regress replace. Now, this is one of the most powerful functions in Excel that we have right now. And when I enter this function, the first thing I need to do is I need to specify the cell. That is obviously cell A2. And now I need to specify a pattern to find the values. Now let me wrap this pattern within double quotation marks. Now this pattern tells this function to look for all non-digit values, non-digit characters. That means anything which is not from 0 to 9. That means only non-numeric numbers. And then once this function find all these characters, replace it with nothing. So when I replace all the non-numeric characters with nothing, what I left with only numeric values. And now when I close this function and hit enter, I get the order number from this text values, the status cell. And let me drag this formula to the last cell. So what I'm using here, I'm specifying the cell where I have the original value, and then this pattern which represents all the non-numeric characters, and I'm replacing it with nothing, and that is why I am left with only numeric values. And here I have this data here in the column A, and in this column I have names of fruits. Now the problem is each name has a separation from other using a special character. Now I want to extract all these names from each cell, but I don't want to use a complex formula. Now what I'll do, I'll use this new function called text split. And I'm going to specify the cell A1 where I have my first value, and I need to specify all the special characters within the formula. That's the only thing I need to do, and it will split everything for me. So here I have these special characters already written in a cell, and you can copy these special characters for yourself if you want to use this function yourself. And let me enter the function again. Text split is my cell, and here is all the special characters. Now in this argument, let me tell you, each special character is wrapped with double quotation marks and then a comma, and then again the next special character again with double quotation marks and then again comma, and so on so forth. And all these characters are again wrapped with curly brackets. So that's the only thing that you need to do in this function, which seems like a little complex, but it's not that complex, like if you compare it with writing a complex formula. So what I'll do, I'll just hit enter and see what I'm going to get in the result. So I have got the first 3 names of the fruits, and let me drag this formula down. And here I have all the names in 3 different columns. So here I have this data with region and sales, and I want to create a quick summary of this data where I would have total sales region wise. So for this, I'm going to use this function called group by, and in the first argument, which is row fields, I'll specify the region column, and in the second argument, which is values, I'll specify the sales, and in the third argument, I need to specify the function, the calculation I want to perform while grouping these region wise data. And let me hit enter to see what I'm going to get in the result. So you can see I have a quick summary table region wise for east, north, south and west, and I also have a row with total. And let me add headers here. Let me just copy from here and paste it here. So you can see I can create a quick summary table using the function group by. All right, so here I have same data that I have used in the last example, but in this data I also have one more column that shows the mode of the payment. So now I want to create a pivot like a summary table, but for that I will not create a pivot table, but I will use the new function called pivot by. So what I'll do, I'll enter the pivot by function, and again, just like pivot table, I have these arguments here. In the row fields, I'll specify the region, and then in the column fields, I will go with payments, the mode of payment, and for values, I'll go with sales. And in the function, again, I'm going to use sum because I want sum of all the sales. And here I'm going to close the function and hit enter. And here I have my quick summary table, which is actually a pivot table, but I have used the function pivot by.